Rink Vancouver, pregame, postgame, every game presented by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play at Bodog.net. Wadden and JPat here with you with another edition of the pregame show as it's game number 40 for the Canucks. JPat, they're getting there, almost at the halfway mark. And, this 5-game road trip, not going so well to start.
Yeah, not quite the midway mark of the season, but you can see it from here. The next one in Tampa will mark the halfway point of the season. And you're right, the road trip, and we've talked this up, it was always going to be tough, and they got a first-hand look at that in Winnipeg with the 7-4 loss to the Jets. So another bounce-back game for the Vancouver Canucks against a Pittsburgh team that maybe isn't the Penguins of a few years ago, but everybody knows the name. There's plenty of star power, and this one won't be easy either.
Let's get to the lineup change presented by Delaney's OK Tire out on Fraser Highway in Langley. We expect a different starter in goal tonight. Colin Delia, it didn't go so well for him, expecting Spencer Martin to get tapped this time around.
Yeah, it was an optional skate this morning. The Canucks only had 2 goaltenders on the ice in Pittsburgh, and one of them was Thatcher Demko in full equipment.
Ooh.
Now, he's not going to play tonight. He's not going to play on this road trip, according to the coach, but this does mark some progress for Thatcher Demko as he tries to work his way back into the lineup. So just take that under advisement. But in terms of the goaltending tonight, yeah, Spencer Martin came in on the relief of Colin Delaney the other day in Winnipeg, gave up 3 goals, ends up taking the loss, which is tough for him. But he will be the starter. Hasn't started since the game against the Islanders last week. And of course, that one didn't go so well for Martin. And the Canucks gave up 5, ended up with an empty netter as well. So a 6-2 loss to the New York Islanders. So Spencer Martin trying to get back on track, as are the Vancouver Canucks. And obviously, when you look at the lineup in front, it looks like it's going to be the same 18 skaters that they used in Winnipeg. And they had some degree of success, scored 4 goals. JT Miller has scored in back-to-back games. Wasn't that long ago we were wondering about JT Miller and his goal-scoring prowess, but he has scored in consecutive games. Of course, the captain scored the other day, and he's always a threat to do that. So we'll see what the Canucks can throw at the Pittsburgh Penguins here as they try to go 1-1 and even the record on this 5-game road trip.
Canucks have to get it going, though. We've talked about how crucial this road trip is going to be. They've dropped 4 of their last 5, though.
Yeah, and the cameras caught Elias Pettersson at the end of the bench in Winnipeg at the end of the hockey game, kind of throwing his stick aside. Not throwing his stick, but it looked like some frustration, a little bit of disgust perhaps. And the Canucks have to guard against this. We know that things haven't been going particularly well for them for much of the season. They have dropped 4 or 5. And so, they just got to keep their head down here. The players are conditioned to play. I know that there are many in the market that think, hey, the best thing would be for the bottom to fall out. That's on upper management to decide what kind of roster it wants to run with the rest of the season. But the players, they're going to play. And Elias Pettersson's a competitor, so you can understand a little bit of the frustration. But Bruce Boudreau, I think part of his challenge right here, right now, is to make sure that frustration of these mounting losses doesn't set in for the Vancouver Canucks.
And one of the challenges that Bruce had this year was just finding the right mix on the 4th line, and looks like they might have something now.
Yeah. Again, the issues for the Canucks are higher in the lineup, but if you're looking for small steps in the right direction, again, they made a roster move recently. Nils Aman, who had spent the first 35 games on the big league roster, got sent to Abbotsford. And in his place, we're seeing Jack Studnicka essentially center the 4th line. Curtis Lazar still playing on the wing. Dakota Joshua on the other. But I think Curtis Lazar has been more noticeable in these last couple of games than he has been for much of the season. Studnicka scored in Winnipeg. And his effort is rarely in question. I think there are still some questions about ultimately what he can be for the Vancouver Canucks. But yeah, right here, right now, that 4th line seems to be giving the Canucks some solid shifts, and we'll see if they can do that again here against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, and the last time these two teams met, the Canucks handled them quite handily. See if they can do it again, but this time on the road.
Yeah, that was way back. That was October 28th. In fact, it was the Canucks' first home ice victory of the season. They had defeated Seattle the night before for their first one of the year, and we wondered about back-to-back and the challenges that would present. And the Canucks came home and were full value for a 5-1 victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Just looking through the game notes, Tanner Pearson scored that night. That remains his lone goal of the season. He opened the scoring. Obviously, he's been injured and has missed much of the year, but that was one of the things that jumped out at me. Bo Horvat had a couple of goals as well that night. In fact, that was the start of 3 straight 2-goal games for Bo Horvat, and it really kind of turbocharged this season and gave us a glimpse of ultimately what was to come for the captain.
Let's focus in on the Penguins now. You want to snap a 6-game losing streak? Well, play the Arizona Coyotes. That's just what the Pens did.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. They were playing outdoors at Fenway. They put up a pretty good challenge against the Boston Bruins. Bruins ultimately came back to win the outdoor game 2-1. And then the road trip continued into Vegas. They lost that one, but they did get it right at Mullet Arena, a 4-1 victory over the Arizona Coyotes. That was the end of the road trip, at least on the schedule. But the Penguins didn't go straight home from Arizona. In fact, they spent Monday in Montreal attending the funeral of Chris Letang's father. So some solidarity shown by the Pittsburgh Penguins towards their longtime teammate. And the team diverted its trip from the desert, went to Montreal, were there, a show of support for the Letang family. Chris Letang injured right now. He's not going to play tonight. But then the Penguins came on home. They had an optional skate this morning, and we'll see where their heads are at, if they can build off the victory in the desert, or if there are still some distractions around this hockey club as they try to pull things together.
Yeah, Letang, a key injury for the Pens. They got a few others as well, but they're clinging to a playoff spot right now in the East.
Yeah, and we think of the Penguins over the last decade or 15 years, and obviously the 3 Stanley Cups and all the superstar power, but right here, right now, they're in a battle just to be a playoff team. Now, they start the day above the bar in the second wildcard spot in the East, so they've got plenty of work ahead of them, and the work is tougher because Chris Letang is out of the lineup, Jeff Petrie is out of the lineup, so there's 2 of their top defensemen, and Tristan Jarry, their starting goaltender, out with a lower body injury, so Casey DeSmith is going to make the start again, as he has the last couple of games for the Pittsburgh Penguins. In fact, Jarry injured in the Winter Classic, got the start there. DeSmith had to come on in relief and has been the guy in net for the Pittsburgh Penguins the rest of the way, and that'll be the case here again tonight.
Yeah, we talked about the Pens losing that game on the road earlier to the Canucks, but they're real solid at home.
Yeah, they've got a 10-4-4 record, and it's the 4 outright losses that jumps out at me. Now, they have dropped 3 in a row, so of late, again, part of that losing streak we talked of, their form hasn't been up to their standards, but overall in the season, 10-4-4, so that tells you they've picked up points in 14 of the 18 games. They've made life difficult on the visitors to PPG Paints Arena there in downtown Pittsburgh. And again, the Vancouver Canucks have dropped 3 straight on the road, so we'll see if they can find their form on the road against the Penguins, or if the Penguins continue their fine run of play on home ice.
He may not be Sid the Kid anymore, but Sidney Crosby is having himself quite a season.
Yeah, and I would say a quietly impressive season, in that the rest of the league, maybe we just take him for granted at this stage. He's got 20 goals. Well, he leads the Penguins in goals, assists, and points. So across the board, a Triple Crown winner this season, perhaps in Pittsburgh. 20 goals for the 15th time in his career. He's reached the 20-goal mark. And, in Vancouver, we look at Elias Pettersson and all the things that he's doing and doing well for the Vancouver Canucks and leads that team in scoring. He's got the same number of points as Sidney Crosby. So that's why I say kind of quietly, we're raving about Elias Pettersson, and it's just ho-hum. Sidney Crosby's got 47 points before his team even reaches the midway mark of the season. So all of it comes through hard work. It always has with Sid, and I'm sure he'll have that motor running again tonight against the Vancouver Canucks.
Jake Gensel's been known to score goals, and he likes to score them against the Canucks as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I knew that he had scored a bunch of goals against the Canucks over the years, but just reading through the game notes for this one, there is nobody in the National Hockey League with a higher goals per game rate that's played at least 5 games against the Vancouver Canucks. Jake Guentzel has a dozen goals. He scored 12 times in 10 career games against the Vancouver Canucks. Remember, Brock Besser used to light up Matt Murray, and it seemed that Besser had something good going against the Penguins. Obviously, Matt Murray has moved on. Brock Besser has scored some goals against the Pittsburgh Penguins, but not at the same rate that Jake Guentzel has lit up the Vancouver Canucks. And we should mention that, Guentzel wasn't in the lineup back on October 28th. That's not the reason the Penguins lost, but they're certainly a better team, a more dangerous team with him in the lineup. He had a couple in the desert the other night against the Coyotes, propelling the Penguins to the victory. So watch for Jake Guentzel, something about that Canucks uniform that seems to bring out the best in his goal-scoring abilities.
Malkin and Letang all re-upped with the Canucks. They're an aging core, maybe one of the last kicks at the can for the Pens.
Yeah, and people know the names. You mentioned a few of them there. I mean, we get this deep, and we haven't even talked about Evgeny Malkin, and he continues to do his thing, and he's capable of taking over a game still. It doesn't happen as often as it used to, but I remember a night in Pittsburgh a few years back. I was there out on the road traveling, and he had 5 points in a wild 8-6 Penguins victory. The Canucks in the third period, they just couldn't touch him, couldn't get the puck off his stick. So keep an eye on Gino as the puck drops in this one. But beyond that, you've got Jeff Carter. You've got Brian Rust, Brian Dumoulin, the same group, and of course, Sidney Crosby now in his mid-30s. All of those guys that I mentioned, are in their 30s. Penguins have traded away draft picks. They haven't drafted particularly well. There's not a whole lot coming. So when we talk about trying to squeeze out maybe one more playoff run, you're kind of looking at it, and that's why I say they're sitting above the playoff bar for the time being, but half a season to go, not home and cooled out, not by a long shot.
Let's get to my Bodog Best Bet now. I got a win last game, looking to keep it rolling. I'm focusing in on Brock Boeser. You mentioned his name earlier. He loves to score goals against the Pens, but I'm just looking at shots on goal here now, JPat. I got him over 2.5 at plus 120. He's got 29 shots on goal in 8 games career against the Pens.
Yeah, and he had that glorious scoring opportunity in the third period against Winnipeg the other day, but didn't count as a shot on goal because he tried to get it up high and lifted it too high up over the crossbar. So he's got to put some of those pucks on the net. I mentioned the Canucks power play. That's been a storyline as well since Christmas. It's scored 3 times. It's running at 15%. But part of that story is also it's given up 3 shorthanded goals. So net 0 for the Canucks power play in 6 games since the Christmas break. That's not going to get it done. This is a team that feasted on the power play earlier in the season. Brock Boeser right now, and we'll see how this game unfolds, but the last couple of games has been on that top unit. Again, it's kind of scuffling along. I wonder how much longer they'll stay with Boeser and make the switch to Andrei Kuzmenko, who's had a ton of success at the net front this season, and that's an easy swap for Bruce Boudreau to make, so keep an eye on that one. But Brock Boeser, something about the Penguins. Let's see if he can get a few pucks on Casey DeSmith and maybe find a way to get a few in there. We talked on a recent pregame show, just the 1 road goal so far this season in Vegas back in November. They need more than that from Brock Boeser as they continue on this road odyssey here for 4 more nights.
Well, perhaps Brock Boeser could be your do-something candidate tonight.
I feel like he could be a do-something candidate just about every night, but I'm going straight to the top here when we're talking about Canuck goal scoring. I'm looking at the captain. I love big round numbers for whatever reason. People celebrating birthdays. If it's not one of the big round ones, then it doesn't matter to me so much, but we're not celebrating a birthday here. But a ton of round numbers. Bo Horvat, the captain, 29 goals on the season. He has a chance tonight to score his 30th goal in his 40th game. And if he does, it'll be his 200th goal in the National Hockey League. So there's a bunch of round numbers for you. Hard to bet against Bo Horvat. So when I tell Bo Horvat to do something, he usually listens. I'm saying, Bo Horvat, do something. Go out there, get that bag, get that 30th goal of the season in the 40th game for the Vancouver Canucks. I think a lot of people are on the Bo train here. They want to see how far he can push that goal total this season. Question of how many are going to come in a Canucks uniform and how many may come in somebody else's colors. But for now, he's still a Canuck. So I'm looking at Bo Horvat to do something in Pittsburgh tonight.
And Canuck fans are looking for their team to do something in Pittsburgh as well. Get a win on this road trip. This tough 5-game roadie that's ahead for the Canucks is stopping through Pittsburgh tonight. Let's see if they can get a W. This has been another edition of the Rink-Wide Vancouver podcast presented by Bodog. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. Remember, Rink-Wide is the show that always scores.